No kidding, he was here, right here. Prove it. Show me. I guess Thomas was the first person from Missouri. The show me state. And he's gotten a bad rap for it that's lasted over 2,000 years now. But if you and I are honest, most of us are spiritual Missourians. We want proof, and lots of it, before we're willing to commit ourselves to anything. Grand claims need to be backed up by hard facts. Born with a question mark at the center of our being, we are prepared to examine everything. Ourselves, our universe, even our God. And yet for all of our questioning, our prove-it attitude, we get downright lockjaw when it comes to giving voice to our doubts, our deep wonderings. I think we consider them signs of weakness. And so we buy into this conspiracy of silence. Well, let me tell you, no such conspiracy exists in the Bible. Thomas certainly wasn't bashful with his doubts. The writings of the giants of faith are equally honest. Even the sages most devout admit to only tiny glimpses of the divine. God is not that obvious to any of us. There are days when any honest, thinking Christian will admit that the gospel promises seem dubious. Doubt, though, is not something that we need to avoid at all costs. The theologian Paul Tillich said that doubt was not the opposite of faith, but an element of faith. And Fred Buechner, the Presbyterian minister and writer, calls doubt, I love this line, the ants in the pants of faith. Isn't that a great line? For Thomas, the cross was exactly what he expected. When Jesus proposed going to Bethany after Lazarus' illness, Thomas' reaction had been, let us also go that we may die with him. And in the end, what Thomas expected from that cross is precisely what happened. Jesus was killed. But even though he expected it, that when that death came, Thomas wasn't ready. Doesn't that ring true? His pain was so intense that he simply couldn't stand to be around the other disciples. It reminded him too much of it. Thomas wanted, needed, chose to be alone in his grief. He opted to face his suffering and his sorrow on his own. And what happened? When Jesus returned, transforming his disciples' sorrow into hope, their despair into trust, Thomas missed it. The others told him, Thomas, Jesus is risen. He was here, but he refused to, couldn't believe them. It was news too good to be true. And belligerent in his grief, Thomas lashes out, unless I jab my finger in the nail holes and my hand into the spear wound, I will not believe. Prove it. A week later, Jesus appears again. This time, Thomas is dead. And knowing Thomas's aching heart, Jesus immediately turns and invites him to satisfy his conditions for believing. Go ahead. Put your finger here. Put your hand in my side. But Thomas, no longer needing to protect his anguished heart, cries out instead, my Lord and my God. You know, Thomas has a whole lot to teach us. First, we can learn from his biggest mistake, withdrawing from the fellowship. He sought loneliness rather than togetherness. And because of it, he missed Jesus' first appearance. You and I miss out when we separate ourselves from the family of faith. We miss seeing Christ in our midst. When sorrow comes and sadness envelops, there's this almost automatic recoil effect in us. I know too well how hard it can be. How much easier it is to kind of just shut ourselves away. But that's the very time when we, in spite of our sorrows, or maybe because of our sorrows, we need the fellowship of Christ's people. For it is in the midst of the community that we experience Christ's comfort and strength and restoration. And you know, you don't have to be physically out of the room to be separated either. We hide the issues and questions that are trying to shake the faith out of us behind this serene, confident facade. We avoid really grappling with the deep questions. We don't verbalize the raging doubts. Heaven forbid we should appear unknowing or confused. We'd much prefer to have everything neatly contained in a tightly wrapped package, all together in black and white, all just so. My friends, nothing is just so. If everything were just so, sure, easy, and logical, we wouldn't need the word faith. It wouldn't be in the dictionary. Grace surely flows when we support and empower each other to share the doubts, the deep questions, the wonderings of our lives. As Robert Capon assures us, there's no harm in thinking I am on the wrong bus, when in fact I am on the right bus, as long as I don't talk myself into getting off the bus. Notice that even Thomas had told the disciples to go fly a kite with their Jesus is alive business. But they didn't tell him to get lost. They didn't toss him out the door. And because of that, there he was with them a week later, doubts and all, right in the middle of them, in the midst of the community. You know, deep down, Thomas must have known that they wouldn't shun him. He must have known that they would hold on to him no matter what. Or he probably would have just kept all those doubts to himself. We can also learn from Thomas's virtues. He absolutely refused to say that he understood what he did not understand, or to believe what he did not believe. There is an uncompromising honesty about Thomas. He wasn't into stilling his doubts by pretending that they didn't exist. He wasn't the type to rattle off a creed without understanding what it was all about. Thomas had to be sure. Tennyson noted, "There lives more faith in honest doubts, believe me, than in half the creeds." Can we be as sure as Thomas? Do we dare to ask and seek answers to the deep questions and wonderings of our faith? Are you willing to not settle for being less than sure? Thomas's other great virtue was that after working through his doubts, once he was sure, he went the whole 9 yards. You know, it's really too bad for Thomas that we remember him predominantly for his doubting, rather than for his confession of faith, "My Lord and my God," which happens to be the only explicit confession of the divinity of Jesus anywhere in John's Gospel. There was nothing halfway about Thomas. He didn't air his doubts as some kind of mental acrobatics. Thomas doubted in order to become sure. And when he was sure, his surrender was complete. Oh, we have a whole lot to thank Thomas for. If we're open to struggling with the areas of our faith that trouble and confuse us, if we're willing to face doubt openly and with energy even, if we will be for each other a community of faith that encourages and accepts honest seeking, we too can move through doubt to deeper faith. Faith, remember, is a journey. And journeys cover all kinds of terrain. They endure all kinds of weather, face all kinds of obstacles, and require all kinds of mid-course corrections. The places in our hearts and minds where we struggle and doubt are not over against our journey of faith. They are integral parts of our journey. And so instead of dreading them as potholes that are ready to blow out a tire on us, we can begin to perceive them as road signs inviting us to grow. Thank you, Thomas, for showing us that it is possible to move through our doubts into the certainty of my Lord and my God. Thank you, Thomas. Amen.
I invite you to stand and